Hey everybody, welcome to Vintage Weights PGH. My name is Rob, and this is the RitFit multifunctional all-in-one rack with Smith machine that I've been using for about 2 months now. So I've put in some work on this thing. I have used it as a half rack, Smith machine, and functional trainer, as well as all the other things that RitFit has added on to this all-in-one. In this video, you're gonna see me work through a review of this product going from each of those thirds. So I'll work through the half rack, I'll work through the functional trainer, and then I'll get to the Smith machine. And then last but not least, I'll go over all the extras that come along with it. And at the very end, I'm going to compare it to a 3x3 rack like the one I've been using for the last 3 to 4 years, the Rogue Monster Light, and also to some other options that RitFit has. So if you're kind of on the fence, like, should I get an all-in-one or should I just go with a 3x3 rack? Then wait to the end of the video and check out my advice, because I've been thinking through all those things the past couple months. To start out, let me tell you right up front that RitFit sent this to me free of charge for this review, but I'm going to give you an honest review. In about 30 seconds, you'll see me show you something that I really didn't like about this product, so you should rest assured that you're going to get my honest take on it. With that said, if you decide to buy, please use the links in the description. That really helps out the channel. If you use my links to purchase this product or any other product, it supports Vintage Weights PGH and it keeps these videos coming. So please make sure to use my affiliate links for any new purchases that you might make for your home gym or otherwise. Let's start out with shipping and assembly. Shipping, I had a great first impression. All the boxes came clearly labeled. Everything was packaged really nicely with some like wooden inserts on the ends to protect against any kind of dropping or handling, rough handling by the carriers. And everything was wrapped very nicely in foam, and there were foam inserts. However, when I took everything out, that's when things got messy, because a lot of the pieces had this kind of sand, metallic sand, just falling out of them. I felt like I was in Dune or something. So this like metallic sand, which basically is from the laser cutting of the holes and the different numberings and different things on the pieces, should have been cleaned out before packaging and shipping, and it wasn't. You'll see that I'm not talking about like 1 or 2 specks of this metallic kind of sand. I'm talking about thousands. It would have been all over my gym if I unpackaged any more of this inside my gym. I immediately shifted outdoors. So that's my first piece of advice to RitFit, is to clean this up. You should not be shipping things to people with pounds and pounds of metallic sand falling out of the pieces. Piece of advice to you consumers, just in case RitFit doesn't fix this, or you know, they have some back stock that they're still shipping, open up your product outdoors if possible. Have a shop vac ready to go to clean up the mess. After that, things improved. Directions were pretty easy to follow. All of the hardware was labeled and in this packaging, self-contained packaging, so that you could easily find each step of the directions. Okay, this is step 1, this is the hardware that goes with it. That was a really nice touch. I also like that tools were included, even this socket wrench and a typical wrench. There's a lot of companies out there that don't send any tools, so that was nice as well. Where things swayed back to not being so great when I was assembling this was finding scratch after scratch after scratch. Listen, I have purchased and received a lot of gym equipment over the years, and I get it. It's tough to send a lot of heavy metal through the mail, especially cross oceans. So I get it that, you know, some accidents are going to happen. However, given the extraordinary effort to wrap every single piece in foam individually, and then finding when I unwrapped them that they were scratched, that leads me to believe that the scratches were just there to begin with. I don't know what your warehouse looks like, but Whatever the case may be, whether it's quality control at the point of manufacture overseas, or whether it's quality control when you're putting together the packages, there needs to be better quality. If I'm dropping, a little under $2,000 on a product, I don't want most of it to be scratched. I was able to hide a lot of the scratches when I assembled this. So when you're seeing the B-roll of me training with this, and when we take a walk around this, you're not gonna see that many scratches. So that's my best advice to you at home, is to just be mindful when you're assembling these things. I mean, if you've got a simple plate and it's scratched on one side and not the other, well, make the nice side face out instead of in. Think about it as you assemble, and you can end up with a nice looking finished product. One last note about the scratches is that RitFit could include touch-up paint. I've had companies do that before. So if you can't quite solve that QC problem, then maybe include some touch-up paint so that consumers can, work with those scratches a little bit better. Although there was a sandstorm, although there were a lot of scratches, assembly actually was really easy. I was a bit intimidated. This is my first all-in-one rack that I was putting together with cables running here, there, everywhere. And I was able to put this together bit by bit over the span of about 3 days. That sounds like a lot, but I was putting in an hour or two after my kids went to bed at night. So overall, I would say this took me about 7 to 8 hours to fully assemble. Getting into the half rack first, because we're gonna work our way through this all-in-one from front to back. The half rack is a 2x3 front upright that has 1-inch holes. The sides are numbered, which can be used for the functional trainer, but also is nice to have that laser cut numbering for placing your J-cups and spotter arms. The rack weighs 478 pounds total, plus what you store on the back. In this case, I have a couple 100 pounds of bumper plate stored on the back. So RitFit provides all the different specifications for this rack. It's 83 inches tall, 79 inches long. It weighs 478 pounds. But it doesn't mention the gauge of steel. Is this 12 gauge, 11 gauge, 7 gauge, whatever. So my best guess is that this is 14 gauge steel. That is not as thick as most of the racks that you would get from Rogue Fitness or Rep Fitness, things of that nature. However, because of the way this is reinforced and because of the weight of it, 478 pounds plus what you have on the back of it stored, I feel comfortable with it. The J-hooks, though, I might mention, are advertised as 1,700 pounds capacity. I didn't test that out. I didn't put 1,700 pounds on here, but I find that to be a little skeptical. I also find that to be a little outlandish that I don't know anyone that is going to be putting 1,700 pounds on these J-hooks. So with that said, I think the bigger safety concern with this half rack in the front is not really the J-cups and how much they're gonna hold. They're beefy, they're 1 inch thick, they're welded all the way around, no shortcuts on that. I think the bigger safety concern, to finish my thought, would be the safety spotter arms. The safety spotter arms are only about 1 foot long, and this is quite short by about 3 to 4 inches compared to most safety spotter arms. So I found this to be strange the first time I was bench pressing and using these, and the first time I was squatting and stepping out and using these, that, oh man, I'm pretty far away from the safety spotter arms. I better get a little closer in case I fail this lift. So it's something to keep in mind that if you have been using something longer, you've been using straps on a full cage, for example, and you're going to a half rack, it takes some adjusting to. You got to get used to these being a little shorter. On both the J-cups and on the spotter arms, there is UMHW protection, except for on the front. So I took some tape, some UMHW tape, and put it on the front so that I'm not banging the barbell off of the front of these whenever I'm trying to put it back on the cups, or unfortunately, when I'm clipping the end of this, since it's a little shorter, the safety spotter arms. The other thing that I would note with the front uprights and the half rack is just that the 1 inch holes are only spaced every 3 inches. And I say only because I'm used to west side hole spacing on a rack and being able to perfectly adjust where I need the bar to be in terms of putting my safety spotter arms, or even just a starting point for the J-cups with a squat, things like that. So that was a bit cumbersome. I'm not sure if that has to do with the structural integrity of it, that they can't put more holes in this. A huge upgrade would be to have a better quality steel front uprights, have like 12 gauge, for example, front uprights, which then they could put more holes into, which would allow for better adjustment. So that might be a nice upgrade, and who knows down the road if RitFit will do that. While I'm here at the front of the rack, I want to talk a little bit about some extra things in addition to the half rack, and that would be the pull-up bars. They have this multi-position pull-up bar where you can have different hand positions to do chin-ups, to do pull-ups. I really like that feature, that you can have these different positions, and I got really used to it. What I don't like is the rubber, very smushy, almost foam grips that are on here, because it just feels like it's going to wear over time and that these are eventually just going to break off. So personally, I would just use an Allen wrench, take this off completely, and remove that rubber grip. Or if it starts to rip, just take it off. And in the future, RitFit might want to rethink, like, just have a bare steel handle or a lightly knurled handle rather than these rubber grips. It'd probably be the same cost. Also on the front of the rack would be the dip handle attachments that you can place into varying heights. The laser cut numbers are nice for that, to line them up at the right position. Be careful if you're using the front upright that you don't catch the cable of your functional trainer. And I would advise using the front uprights to do this rather than the back, because that nameplate back there is razor thin and you're gonna straight up like Marie Antoinette yourself if you're trying to do dips back there. So, you know, find the height that you like and you can do dips. This is a nice width for me personally, but keep in mind, these aren't adjustable in terms of width, just height. So some of you that are a little skinnier or a little wider than I am might not like these. For me, this was all right. I didn't really have a problem either way, even though my old man elbows are cracking. The last thing to mention up here at the front of the rack would be the landmine attachment. This functionally was fine, everything was cool with it, and I like that you could pick whether to put the foot plate or the landmine on either side. It's up to you. One thing that would have been nice, so that I wasn't constantly tripping over this thing, would be that if there was just a pin here. That way, instead of a bolt, if there was a pin, I could remove it and just set it aside for when I wasn't using it. And then if there was just a lock pin, boom, a mag pin situation, I could put it back in. So that's something that if I was keeping this rack long term, I would probably DIY, because I did kick this thing several times like that as I was walking past to go get weights or do something. So the other thing that you could do is just use a magnet and try to fix a magnet to keep this upright like that in a more stable position, because again, this thing just got kicked around constantly. If you're still watching, thank you. You're a champ. Please subscribe. Make sure you help out the channel by liking this video. And let's move on to the functional trainer. So the functional trainer, first of all, is quiet. I haven't put any of the lubrication oil that came with it on this. I guess I should do that. But you can see this is quiet. That's nice. I can hear it flying around my gym more than I can hear this thing. It's got some nice stops. The hardware is great. I love that this goes back and forth. There's lots of different companies that make functional trainers that go back and forth like this from side to side, and it's such a nice thing in a small home gym to have that versatility that I can pull from this side or over here. So very nice feature there. Aluminum pulleys, come on now. If you look at any type of pulley system, one of the first things people mention are whether the pulleys are composite or aluminum. So aluminum pulleys, whew, that is nice, RitFit. Nice job there. This thing is a 2-to-1 ratio. If you don't know what that means, basically whatever weight you put on here, divide it in half, and that's what you're really lifting. So if I throw on 2 45-pound weight plates, I'm actually pulling only 45 pounds, not 90 pounds. A 2-to-1 ratio, in my best opinion, over the past couple months, was plenty in terms of the accessory work that I was doing with these. The heaviest that I loaded these up were really for rows and I guess pull downs. And when it comes to lat pull downs, you had to sit on the floor. At least I do. I'm 6 foot tall, and it just wasn't tall enough, the 83-inch rack, because this does not go all the way to the top. So sitting on a bench, I didn't get full range of motion, and I ended up just sitting on the floor. I was able to rig up like a extra chain belt that I had to loop around the bottom and hold myself down. So just a little tip there, when you're sitting on the floor, put a belt around beneath the rack to hold yourself down for heavy lat pull downs. When it comes to rows, the foot plate is a nice feature, but kind of a cheap one. So let's look at that. So this foot plate has this shiny, like, exterior, and my problem with that is that this isn't metal, this is plastic. And you're moving pieces of metal around, whether it's weight plates or barbells, especially up here in the front portion of this, the half rack, and all it's going to take is one hit from a barbell to crack this thing. It also is kind of sharp on the edges. Like, I caught my foot on this one day, and they should really have a less sharp edge. I've seen in other reviews that the M1 model has an upgraded foot plate that does look a lot nicer than this, so maybe RitFit will improve the foot plate on the Buffalo to that upgraded model. In terms of the function of the cable pulley, the other thing I really loved was how easy it was to adjust. So this is a pop pin that you loosen up, and then you can pull it out and move it up and down wherever you want. The last thing I'd mention about this is that you have to tighten it down. So make sure, don't get lazy, make sure you tighten it down, because once you start pulling on this, if it's not tightened down, that pop pin is going to pop and things are going to come crashing down on your face. As you might have seen though, the cable, even though I've adjusted it to the tightest point, the cable is still pretty loose in my opinion. What I mean by adjustment points is that there are 3 different points where you can attach the cable, and I have it attached to the furthest point, the tightest point, and it's still pretty loose. Now let's go back and take a look at the trolleys, which are just an important part of the functional trainer. So the trolleys are on dual guide posts, and these are not solid. I wish they were. So like the Smith machine is a solid piece of steel. It's basically like a standard barbell. These are not. They are hollow. I can even kind of rotate them a little bit here. So I didn't see any bending or anything extreme, but in terms of durability and long-term use, it just makes me feel better if these were also solid steel, and that would be an area that RitFit could upgrade this some. It glides smoothly, like I said, and the aluminum pulleys are wonderful. The loading pins, it's a dual loading pin on both of them. So you've got 4 that you can load for the pulley system. However, these are a point of contention that I have with the functional trainer. This is probably my least favorite part of the functional trainer would be these loading pins. Number 1, they're plastic. So in terms of durability, that really angers me, because if this sucker breaks, it's gonna be hard to find a replacement. Maybe RitFit sells replacements, but I don't even wanna get into that. Secondly, these are angled upward sometimes. I think 2 out of my 4 loading pins are angled upward. The other ones are straight ahead. So I don't know if they're supposed to be angled upward or not. So if you purchase this, make sure you're paying attention and you don't put one that is angled upside down, or your plates are going to be sliding off. Speaking of sliding off, the clips that are provided, the barbell collars that are provided, they give you enough for all 4 of these loading pins. There's just one problem. They don't fit. Like, I can put this on here, and you see how that swung around, and this basically slides back and forth. So they don't fit. I'd put plates on here, I'd put this on, and it didn't matter. The plates would just fall off. So I ended up having to use like an old school barbell collar to screw into this thing to try to hold plates on. So that is something that RitFit 100% should fix. So I mean, there's other suggestions in this video that I have for RitFit, but this is like a low-cost item that really should function well and that is pointless to spend any money on and include, because they don't work. I tried all of them. It came with 8 of these and none of them worked. Not one. Another thing that I'd add about the trolleys is that on this particular rack from RitFit, the Buffalo, you can't buy the additional weight stacks. On the M1, you can buy the weight stacks. The M1 though, you know, has its ups and downs, same as the Buffalo. Regardless which one you choose to purchase, if you use my affiliate link to RitFit, it's going to help out the channel. One thing that is really nice is that RitFit provides a ton of attachments for the functional trainer. I have this on my wall control. If you don't know about wall control, you should. Head to wallcontrol.com and use code VINTAGE to save some money. You get some steel panels that are way better quality pegboards than anything else you're going to buy, and you can save some money with code VINTAGE. So you can arrange all of your attachments. From RitFit, I found it redundant. These two attachments, this one that's the powder coat finish straight bar that is identical in terms of length and functionality to this chrome finished one, came with this and packaged with this very tiny lap bar. Like, this thing is made for maybe a 9-year-old. I would advise RitFit to just get rid of this duo. You could bring down the cost a little bit on the package and cut down the redundancy of the same attachment being mailed to the consumer and something that the consumer really isn't going to use. Like, I used this thing one time and then set it aside, the tiny, tiny lap bar. With that said, the chrome plated ones are actually kind of nice, the attachments, and seem to be decent quality. I would keep those. And then I really like these handles. The knurled handles are pretty nice. So I really liked most of the attachments, just not the black powder coated ones. Now let's talk about the Smith machine. I have never used a Smith machine this consistently or this much in my entire life, but the past 2 months I've been using this a couple times a week. I used it mainly for accessories. The max weight on it is 352 pounds, and although I rarely lift more than that, I just found it kind of nice to use as an accessory movement. The other thing I started to notice over time is that compared to my heavy bench press or my heavy squats, on one hand, I get it that the Smith machine has a safety feature involved, that you can hook it onto these latches, and that the guide rails eliminate some of your movement back and forth, so all you have to do is move this thing up and down. But with that said, if I'm being truthful, I started to notice that I was really pushing against the rails with it to grind out some last couple reps, and I'm not sure if that's ideal. So that's where I saw this more as an accessory piece than a main feature of my workout. That's just my 2 cents in terms of the Smith machine. It does function very well. I mean, it is smooth. It has some nice bearings in it that move up and down on these solid guide rods. The hooks engage with the ladder system on the sides very well. I never really had an issue rotating the bar as long as you tightened up on the set screws. The knurling is basically non-existent. This is just decoration. It helps you with your hand placement, I'll give it that, but in terms of grip, I mean, I don't really have a different grip from the knurled section to the smooth section. So if it bothers you, maybe put some grip tape, some hockey tape on here to get a better grip. The bar is a little thicker. This is closer to 30 millimeters than, you know, a 28 or 29 millimeter barbell. And it only weighs 33 pounds, which if you're used to gym math and a bar weighing 45 pounds, that is kind of annoying. So what I did was I threw the extra weights on here first. So I kept this 5-pound pair of Jacksons. I'm pretty sure I'm the only guy to ever have a RitFit rack and put Jacksons on it. And some micro gains fractional plates on here to add the weight to make this always weigh 45 pounds. So at home, if you have this and it annoys you trying to add 33 plus things, just put the extra, 12 pounds on there and call it a day. Similar to what I said about the hole spacing on the front upright, I found that to be a little cumbersome too in terms of a starting position and a finishing position for certain movements, that these pegs are every 4 inches, and that's where you need to start and finish. I did really though, after the first couple weeks of awkwardness getting used to the Smith machine, this is probably the biggest 180 in terms of my opinion of things. I started out thinking, man, I'm gonna trash this thing in the review. And here I am saying that this is actually one of my favorite things in this whole setup. I really liked using the Smith machine. I would do, extra bench press, extra squats, front squats. I put the leg press attachment on here. It was tough to get on. Like, let me grab it here. These brackets to attach it on, yeah, I mean, you could figure them out, but it wasn't quick. I would have to take a couple minutes to put this on. It'd be nice if they had a quicker release type thing involved. And please know that you have to tighten these suckers down a lot. One of the first times I was using it, I didn't tighten it down enough. And then when I was trying to re-rack the bar, the foot plate just rotated when I rotated my feet, and suddenly I was about to get crushed. Thankfully, the Smith machine has these safeties, so always set your safeties. Make sure, use the safeties on the Smith machine because I was saved that day by the safeties. One other quick note on using the leg press is that I found it easier if I was laying down with my head facing this way rather than that way in terms of just trying to re-rack it and unrack it the way my foot would flex. So try it out for yourself with low weight first and figure out what you prefer. And then, like I said, really make sure you crank down that foot plate in terms of the leg press. Once I got past that and started using the leg press regularly, I liked it a lot. Hopefully in this review, you can see that I have not shied away from mentioning some criticisms. And to finish that out, I'd mention that the barbell storage is metal-to-metal contact, and I don't like that. It does come with 2 barbell storage hooks, which is nice, but personally I wouldn't store my bars on there. The weight plate storage in the back, although plastic, weight horns, kind of like the trolleys for the functional trainer, I did find them to be, you know, decent quality. It's nice that they can be adjusted so that you can kind of put them at the height that you want them without any kind of bolts or anything. And I didn't really find it to be a big deal pulling the weights off the back and bringing them to the front. And it's pretty close to the functional trainer, so they were right there. You can store your J-hooks and your safety spotter arms on the back as well with the extra holes that are in the back uprights. And the nameplate, like I mentioned, it's not the best. It's that plasticky material rather than a metal finish. So make sure that you're not scratching it or bumping into it because it's gonna really not look that good pretty fast. With all of that said, I really think that overall, when I take into consideration the price, which is currently a little under $1,800, it's like $1,759 on sale. When I take into consideration the price, let's just say ballpark, it's about $1,750. It's about $1,750 for this whole setup. That is a good value. I mean, you're getting a functional trainer, a half rack, a Smith machine, plus landmine, plus pull-up bar for $1,750. So then, as I promised at the beginning of the video, let's talk a little bit about which avenue you should take. Because for $1,750, you can get a pretty nice setup from another company. You could go to Rogue and get yourself a Monster Light rack with, you know, some upgrades, with safety straps, with, you know, a different nameplate or pull-up bar. You could go to RitFit, get yourself, you know, a 5,000 with 1-inch holes and outfit that with some attachments. Are you gonna get this many attachments? No. So here's my best advice. If you're kind of toying with the idea of like, man, I don't know which way to go. Should I go with a 3x3 or go with this? What you need to really ask yourself is how fast do you want to have it all? This is okay quality to get your money's worth. I'm here to tell you, you're not going to get a 3x3 rack from a major company with a functional trainer for $1,750. Like, you know, just add it up. Go to Rep and add in the Athena and see what it costs. It's more than that. So you got to think through that. Like, you know, Smith machine plus functional trainer plus dip attachment, landmine, all those things. Ugh, that's a lot of money up front. So if your budget is only about $2,000 or less, it's really time that you've got to think about. Do you want this all right now? Or do you want to be more patient and wait it out and just buy the basic rack and then add on, add on, add on? I can't answer that for you. What I can tell you is that if you go with this option, here's one last thing to think about. RitFit also has a rack that is much cheaper than this one, and it's just the functional trainer and the half rack. It's only about $700. So I found that interesting because the Smith machine might not interest a lot of people. So one last thing to think about would be, how much do you really care about having a Smith machine? My best advice there, given my experience the past couple months, would be to try to go try one. Like, whether it's at a commercial gym that you join for just like a month and you just use the Smith machine, or maybe you have a friend that has one, use one for a while and just see, because that really is like $1,000 difference there. Like that's a big difference. So see how much you really care about having a Smith machine. And if it turns out you don't care about having a Smith machine, then maybe go with a rack from RitFit that just has a functional trainer in this, or maybe go a different direction in terms of a different company with a functional trainer and a half rack. I hope this has been helpful. I hope that if you decide to purchase this or any other type of rack, you go through my affiliate links in the description or on my website, vintageweightspgh.com. It helps support the channel and it doesn't change the cost to you. And actually, it kind of does. Some companies offer discount codes, and if you use code VINTAGE, it'll bring down the cost to you. So thanks so much for watching. Please like, subscribe, comment, all that happy stuff. Tell me what you think of this thing. Tell me what you think of my criticisms and the things I thought were good about it, because I like to hear from you. This is Rob at Vintage Weights PGH.